Hello, everyone, and welcome to NCC Now. Boy, do we have some exciting things for you. Today, we have a special guest, Donna Curtis, on our show today. She's a nurse at Greenwich Hospital and currently working with COVID, risking her life to save people. How's it going, Donna?
Very good, thank you. I'm glad to be here today.
Awesome. So I have some questions for you just to get to know you and the audience to understand what you do and what goes on in the hospital. Our first question is, why did you become a nurse?
When I was in high school, I started lifeguarding and then began taking first aid and even an EMT class, and I realized that I really wanted to do something with medicine and with patients. So I looked into different types of programs and decided I really wanted to be a nurse. So I went and got my bachelor's degree in nursing, and for 30 years I've been a nurse, the last 24 in the intensive care unit.
That's awesome. Like I mentioned to you before, my mom's also a nurse, and I want to ask just a side question. Are there different steps to become a nurse, or is it just one specific steps?
No, there's many different pathways. Some people do a 2-year program and then go on to get their bachelor's degree. Other people go straight into a 4-year program. And then there's also higher level advanced nurses, nurse practitioners, and other things that you can do after that.
That's awesome. I want to ask you, what is your particular job, especially during the pandemic?
So I work in the intensive care unit, where we obviously take care of the most critical patients in the hospital. We are a 10-bed unit, but during COVID, we went to 20 beds within a week and then went even beyond 20 beds in the ICU. Until things started to calm down, and then we worked with our sister hospitals to keep the numbers down because the hospital was quite full.
It's fascinating, definitely a really scary experience, but we're gonna check out some footage of Donna at her job.
So in the hospital, we wear masks all the time, but when we go into a patient's room, we either have to wear an N95, or this is actually the respirator that we use, so that it's multi-use, so we're not throwing away masks all the time, and we're preserving PPE and the masks for when they're absolutely needed.
Was that particular mask that you're putting on, what is it called?
So this is the respirator.
Okay, that's the respirator,
Yeah,
okay.
it has filters on the side, and every time we put it on, we have to check to make sure it's working. Goggles to protect our eyes.
So how long do you have to wear that? How many hours? Like, I know you work long hours, like.
Yeah, so basically just whenever we're in the patient room. But, in the initial surge of COVID back a year ago, we were wearing the N95 masks for the whole 12, 13, 14 hours that we were there per shift.
So how stressful does it get working at the hospital, especially during the pandemic?
Very stressful. It's normally a very stressful job to begin with, but the pandemic, especially in the beginning when we didn't know a lot about COVID,
Right.
And how it was transmitted, was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever encountered in my life.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely during the pandemic, a lot of things were going on, and I do believe that you took some time off just to kind of calm down and not think about your job all the time. What do you do to relieve that stress?
So at work, we set up a quiet room so we could take little breaks or even try to get outside to the garden. And we had lots of different tools within the hospital to relieve stress. And then at home, that's when, I exercise, do yoga, try to just find ways to relieve stress in a very difficult environment and world because everything was closed.
Right.
So, and relying on my family and my friends to talk to and try to get away from the news and the social media, away from all the pandemic stuff, and just concentrate on me and resetting myself so I could be the best person I could be when I got back to work.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that actually. You mentioned your family and your friends being that emotional support. Is there anybody else that's supporting you during that time?
Well, my family was my rock.
Okay.
I mean, their entire world got turned upside down, but whenever I needed something and whenever I needed help, they were always there for me. And after that, my coworkers, because I don't think anybody who wasn't with us truly understood everything that we went through, especially those first 3 months during the first surge. And then, my friends outside of work, they sent food. They were always calling, seeing how we
Awesome.
were doing and everything. Everybody really wanted to help, and I think that they were frustrated because there wasn't a lot they could do to help, but they were there for us as much as they could be.
Awesome, awesome. So this is another video of Donna, another way she relieves her stress. You mentioned yoga, so we're gonna look at that right now.
Self-care was really important even before the pandemic when you work in ICU. But when the pandemic hit, most of the activities we did to keep ourselves physically and mentally healthy were closed. I used to love going to the gym or getting my nails done, meeting some friends for lunch, but suddenly we couldn't do those things. Administration would come around and ask what we were doing to take care of ourselves, and we had to think of new ways to keep ourselves healthy so that we could take the best care of our patients that we could. For me, getting outside in nature was one of my favorite activities after the pandemic hit. I was able to exercise and have quiet. Getting outside in nature for long walks and hiking was really good for me. I needed to get away from the news and social media and just be surrounded by quiet, a place where I could soak up the sun and take my mask off and breathe the fresh air, listen to the sound of nature's instead of the phone calls and the ventilator alarms or the monitor alarms at work. It also allowed me to get exercise to help keep my body healthy. At work, we started doing yoga in the hallways for a few minutes every day just to decompress and practice our breathing, and I started doing that outside sometimes too. It's important to take care of yourself always, but during a pandemic, it was really critical, and doing things for myself, like meaning self-care, really helped me take better care of my patients. The other thing that we did was we would often meet after work outside and just sit around 6 feet apart in the open air and talk about our days so that we could share our experiences and decompress a little before we went home to our families. Hopefully, we'll use the skills we learned for self-care going forward to keep ourselves healthy, even as everything opens up again and we're able to return to some of the activities we loved before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I really admire how you take the time to focus on yourself and not just focusing on what's going on at your job or anything like that. I want to ask you, what's the most challenging or the scariest thing that you encounter at your job?
Well, during the pandemic, it was actually mostly being worried about getting sick or somebody I love getting sick. But you're constantly having emergencies. It's a high stress environment, not only for the staff, but the patients and the visitors. So we always have to be cognizant of our own safety at work, especially in the environment with the country today.
Most definitely.
So, we're always thinking of that, and you never know what's going to happen, especially in a high stress environment like the intensive care unit.
Awesome. Here's one last video showing what Donna is most afraid of and why.
Hey guys, I'm home. Stay upstairs, please. So in the weeks before the pandemic, we had tons of education on how to keep ourselves safe at work and try to be as safe as possible, but no one ever talked about how to keep our family safe, especially when we were coming home from work. So we all came up with our own little routines. The only thing that I brought to work for me is a change of clothes and my phone, which I always put in a baggie to keep it clean, and then obviously my shoes. So after work, we would go into a clean bathroom and just Purell everything, get our scrubs and everything that we wore to work off, and put them in a bag, and then change. And when I get home, everything goes straight into the wash, including the bag, because I don't know if it's got COVID on it. Even with gowns and gloves and everything, we don't know how it's transmitted yet. So we were really scared about it even coming home on us. So that was the first thing. Immediately come home, and everything from work goes straight into the wash. Okay, and then once I get that on, okay, we wipes, because now I'm not sure, even though I wash my hands about 5 times after leaving work, I just worry that I touched something already. So immediately everything gets wiped down that I touched, including my shoes. I wiped them down before I got into the car and took them off, but I wiped them down again, and they stay down here. They don't get put on again until I go to work next time. These only go work in down here where nobody's gonna see it. And I wiped down my phone before I left work again, and I put it in a clean bag, but still, you just don't know. And the last thing I want to do is bring COVID home to my family. I think that's my biggest fear, even more than getting it myself, is that I'm going to give it to somebody I love. Then I take some more wipes. Everything I touched on my way into the house gets wiped down again. All the doorknobs. Usually try to call ahead too, and they'll leave all the doors open between the garage for me, so I don't have to touch anything. And then I go and I wipe down my car, steering wheel and the seat. Even though I'm the only person in it now, I just, don't want to take any chances. After that, warn everybody that I'm coming upstairs. Hey guys, I'm coming upstairs. Go to the TV room. I don't want anybody within 6 feet, 12 feet, 20 feet of me if I can help it. It's straight upstairs to the shower. And then after I've showered, washed my hair, tried to make sure all the COVID is gone, I clean the bathroom, and then these clothes and everything I touched in between now and when I take the shower actually come down and get washed themselves too. So, there's just so much we don't know about COVID, and I want to make sure that everybody's safe at home. On my days off, I try to keep my distance. I've got my own little space. I try to keep everybody out of the bathroom I use. Even had my husband sleep in another room because I don't want to spend any amount of close time with the people I love and risk them getting COVID as well if I bring it home from work. It's really scary because there's so much we don't know about it. And, a lot of people are even looking into staying at hotels or other places so they're not near their family at all. But that's really difficult when you're working 3 different days a week, and how does that work? So we're doing the best we can, trying to keep distance and washing our hands constantly, wiping everything down as often as possible, and just keeping our fingers crossed and praying that we all stay safe and nobody that I love gets this horrible disease.
Yeah, that must be really stressful, that constant routine, just changing your lifestyle due to the pandemic. I want to ask you, is there any good thing that came out of this though?
I think at the end of the day, our team in the ICU and throughout the whole hospital became much stronger. We all learned a lot about ourselves. We put in a lot of new protocols that are going to improve patient care, not just for COVID, but for all of our patients. And on the good side, we also had no flu this year. So hopefully next year we can use a lot of what we learned and prevent more flu complications and deaths next year.
That's awesome. Thank you for your service, your work.
Thank
That's
you for
all the
having
time
me.
we have for today. Thank you, Donna. And see you guys next time. Goodbye.